Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Buckle Up podcast with Mike and Ami. This is officially episode 1. We did one of these in quarantine on the hopes of doing a whole series, and what happened?
I think we did 2. We had a special guest, one of them, and I believe it did not get recorded. Is that what happened?
Well, we started one. It was just the two of us. And the second one, we had a guest, and we were so new to Zoom that I left it on speaker view the whole time.
Yeah,
so the entire episode is just a close-up of our guest. So as we're talking, she was just like... So that was the whole entire episode, and that was a problem. And then we canceled one the next week. We said we were scheduled to do one, and we said, why don't we just do it next week? But I knew. What did I say at the time? I forgot. I said why don't we just reschedule for next week?
Yeah, I think I said let's just do 5 minutes.
Yeah,
because we both know what's going to happen, and then exactly what we thought would happen happened.
Yeah. So the lesson was that when you're building those habits, especially in creative endeavors, if you don't do it for 90 days straight, there's a sweet spot. It doesn't become a habit. Yeah. And that's what happened. I said, I said at the time, Michael, if we don't do this next one, it's over. And you're like, no, we'll get back on it. And I was like,
I think it was me who wanted to do it.
Oh, maybe I'm not blaming you. I might have been guilty of it too, saying, yeah. Well, but if you don't make the priority to do it, it just...
Well, that was during a time also when it felt like time was limitless during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Where at any point of the day, no matter when it was, you could make time for something.
Which means you'll never do it.
Yeah, that too.
That's why I got fatter. And there were people who got in shape during the thing, but they pissed me off.
Yeah. Also, I think what happened is we both lost people close to us.
Right.
I think we were joking around about COVID and analyzing it, and then my grandmother died,
and my uncle died, and
it was less fun.
Honestly, I remember the next week we were ready to okay, you want to talk about it? And we were like, we went in being like, COVID's crazy. Can you believe people are dying? And then the next week we were like, hey. That's 100% true. It got serious, so it was hard to kibitz
very quickly.
It was hard to be kibitzing about it.
Yeah. I remember driving back from Brooklyn to New Jersey. The roads were completely empty, and I called you to tell you my grandmother died, and you were like, "I think my uncle is not doing too well either."
I was like, "Yeah, Michael, hey, we doing this?" You're like, "So my grandma," but it wasn't COVID from your grandmother, right? Or we don't know.
We don't know, but it was. We don't know, but it was.
Right.
She was a very healthy with it, 90-plus-year-old woman. And a week later,
it's funny.
She wasn't with us.
I mean, it's not funny at all. I can't believe I said that. No, I remember when the whole COVID thing was happening, the first episode we did, the Zoom one, the pilot tester, we were talking about how, isn't this weird that usually these big stories in the news don't ever become real life?
Yeah.
They never become these real things. They're just these distant stories. And then with the exception of 9/11 or these massive events, we didn't think COVID was that. We thought it was just a random, SARS. I remember SARS. It was a story. But it wasn't something that ever affected our lives, and we're just privileged because of that. But it was happening in the world, but it was just a happening. And COVID started that way, and then it became became a thing, and then it literally was as close to home as possible as we actually were knowing people, and then it was hard to kibitz about.
Yeah.
It's fun to joke about other people's tragedies for sure.
Well, a year ago, someone would have...
It's very strange talking this close, isn't it? We're going to have to get used to that or get a bigger table.
I think we're going to have to get a bigger table.
Yeah.
If at that point, 3-4 weeks in, someone would have said, but, when they have a vaccine and everyone who gets it, and no one's dying anymore, things will go back to normal, right?
I'm so confused about all of that.
And it just hasn't.
It hasn't.
It just hasn't.
Well, I'm suspicious on both ends because I got vaccinated. There was a time when Trump was the president and it was his mission to save us all from this. The whole narrative on the left was distrust of the vaccine efforts. Trump was like, we got a beautiful vaccine, it's coming. No one trusted that they could do it this fast. It was like, I'm not taking it if they ask Kamala Harris, I'm not taking it if Trump says to take it. So, and then when Trump lost, and that was shocking to everybody, I think, left and right, just like when he won, it was a shock. It was equally a shock that he lost. Just because it seemed like there was much more energy on his side, and the fans were much stronger on his side, and Biden people were hesitantly fine, he'll do. But once he lost, I think his side felt this really deep betrayal and ascribed an illegitimacy to the new administration. So everything associated with them and all of their suggestions as far as vaccines go were no longer trusted. I feel like southern states and real Trump supporting states would all be getting vaxxed if Trump won and it was all his victory and they could be a part of that. I think that's what it is. I don't think it's a anti-science thing because they jump back and forth on that all the time.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think so. I was thinking the other day if I got the vaccine and Sarah got the vaccine, but if there was some sort of mandate if like our daycare said, you know, your 1-year-old has to get a vaccine, I don't think I would give it to her.
Right. Yeah, I love
that. I don't think it would be irresponsible not to.
And I love this idea that it's so funny. I think there are for adults who you know, everybody has their judgmentalisms across the board, but like I got COVID after getting the vaccine and I was in much better shape than people I knew who didn't get it. And if you just look at the numbers aside, it's kind of easy to see apolitically that the vaccine's effective and is working, and it's probably not risky. At the same time, it is an impossible statement to say, are we frozen? No. It's an impossible statement to say, we know it's safe and effective for 30 years down the road because it is new.
Yeah.
So because it's new, it carries with it risks, I would imagine, and I'm not an expert, that that mumps, measles, rubella don't, and polio doesn't. It's not quite the same thing. Being anti this vaccine, not being suspicious or hesitant about this vaccine, is more understandable than other vaccines. Yeah. At the same time, vaccine science, if you look into it, I've watched like interviews on the Lex Fridman podcast. Do you know who that guy is?
Yeah.
So he had this biologist or virologist on who was explaining why, you know, and he was giving all the sensible points and not being judgy about people's decisions. He was like, listen, I think if you want to get the vaccine, you should probably get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, that's your decision too. He was like that. But he was just saying like, there's never been a case where a vaccine 30 years later like turned everyone into zombies. It hasn't happened. That's not how vaccines kind of work biologically, scientifically, which made me feel better because I had my own hesitancies too, thinking it is brand new. And if there is ever a case where an I Am Legend situation that you always talk about with me, conspiratorially, what happened, it's like, why did we all just listen to the government?
Yeah, a cousin of mine, he's like my father's first cousin. I guess he's my first cousin once removed. Yeah. He is a doctor, and I brought up ivermectin to him. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me about it. He was like, you know, just very like indifferent about it, which was like a nice opinion to hear. Mm-hmm. And then the issue of vaccines came up, and he said the first person, if the vaccine was problematic, we would know by now. Mm-hmm. And his reason was interesting. He said because they started giving the vaccine like let's say in like January to like to the first people. Let's say let's say the vaccine turns someone into a zombie in 20 years. There's going to be a very, very small percentage of people who it turns into a zombie right away. Like they're extremely sensitive to it. Mm-hmm. If it was going to turn someone to a zombie, those small percentage of people would already be zombies, and we know that there's a problem, which I thought was really interesting.
And it was a better answer than like, oh my God, are you anti-science?
Right.
Which I hate, which is everything on the left is always, if you slightly disagree or have a question, you're anti-truth.
Right.
It's like, no, truth is arrived at through discussion and hacking away. But the certainty that you find, especially on the left, when it comes to points that they believe in, the certainty is obviously, I think probably the right is guilty of it too. But you do get this righteous sort of indignation idea about it, especially when before Trump won and it was his crusade, then they were very skeptical of it, and then but at the same time, for kids, I'm pro-vaccine and as personally, but I would never mandate it either. And what a recipe for disaster to like, I don't know. I thought everyone was pro-choice with their bodies. Right. The difference here, also, no one has an honest conversation about it because you're like, yes, people on this conversation say, I thought you were pro-choice, gotcha. But at the same time, we're talking about a virus that's potentially contagious. So it's not like it's not like pregnancy's contagious. Mm-hmm. So they are different categories. The reason people are okay with mandating, and I'm not, but the reason they are is because they really believe in the negative externalities of COVID. Right. But at the same time, I'm so over it, dude.
Me too.
I'm so fucking over it because the goalposts have just kept getting moved from the beginning. Yeah. Which makes you think, like, what is this about? What are we trying to get to? The standard has become impossibly high. It's like we need to have a germ-free society. Right. No. Oh, well, so people have to forget what questions to ask. Now I'm only concerned with who's sick and dying and who's not. And not who's positive and not who's negative. If you're vaccinated, you can't make the claim that the vaccine's safe and effective, and yet we're still all in danger.
Right. Right, and I think the more people make that argument, the more legitimacy they lose.
Exactly. And just and also like ivermectin stuff, when they go claiming that, when the CNN headline is Joe Rogan takes horse medication,
Yeah, that was
then that makes me say, okay, ivermectin probably works.
Yeah.
Immediately, because if you lie, you're hiding something, or you're not saying he took I'm not approved. It's so blatantly, they're not even pretending to be misleading
And
anymore.
there was no follow-up from those journalists of like,
He's better.
vaccine denying, horse tranquilizing person. It gets better in 3 days.
Yeah, of course. There's been that. Have you followed the Sam Harris, Brett Weinstein? Those guys. They've like having like.
I'm very sick of the Weinsteins.
Yeah, why?
Generally.
You sound like Tim Dillon.
I sound like
What are
no,
you?
yeah,
What are they
I-
doing?
he-
What do they do? It's just Eric Weinstein. What has he made? What's he done?
He definitely turned me off against them.
Tim did.
Tim did. Generally speaking, I mean, I have the same problem I think I have with Jordan Peterson, where there's they
trigger me.
don't seem to want to change things. They just want the power that they weren't given themselves. They don't want like the people. They don't want the structures to change. They just want to be leading them because they think they're smarter than everyone else. And also they're just so they're so self.
You're talking about Jordan too, or you're lumping him in?
Jordan. No, that part I think are just the Weinsteins. The guy, the ivermectin guy, Brett. He just has so much self-interest in all the stuff he goes about, like talking about. He's like, clearly his financial future depends on building an audience for himself. So everything he says is a little bit suspect.
So here's my question: how come you're so inherently suspect of people's intentions? You always assume
Because Tim Dillon told me to. That's why.
It's just, Tim Dillon. You can make the argument. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
Shouts to Tim. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
He wants to build an audience too, so maybe he wants to be anti everything. But I think he actually believes that stuff.
No,
and I think Brett believes the stuff he says too, and certainly Jordan.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is popular, I think it's like a chicken and egg thing. Yeah. The fact that what Jordan believes and is propagating is resonating doesn't mean that Jordan is saying certain things to resonate.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean
or
that.
Brett or Eric.
I think I just mean I used to have very positive feelings towards all those guys,
Yeah.
and they've just soured over the last little while.
Right.
And
the problem with Eric is he doesn't
what it
speak
is.
English. He speaks like
Right.
he speaks in a way that he just overcomplicates the English language unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Not in a way that kind of impresses me. It's like if we're sitting here having a conversation, he's like, he would call this not a podcast. He would call it, this is what we need to focus on is the intergenerational mind congruence that takes place within the confines of physical structures in which we can use tools and technology in order to congregate ideas and have them meld to create a new bright future.
He's the guy.
You mean have a conversation? Yeah. Jordan does that too in a funny way, but when Jordan does it, it's actually poetic and I find really beautiful the way he uses language, and it's like wow, it shines it adds real depth. And Eric seems to do it because he doesn't know how to speak English like a human being. Brett, I think, is an interesting guy. Brett talks, with ivermectin. Have you seen his podcast?
Yeah.
I've done a few bits. So we need to be very careful because him and Heather Heyer are always kind of. Now we need to be very careful. I took half of Viagra mixed with ivermectin, and not only was it doubly dangerous, but it was also not as harmful as you would think. I got hard and I did not get COVID. And Heather was like, yeah, that's interesting. I saw you had a raging semi when you came in. So the vested interest part, I don't know, maybe my natural instinct is to say these people are passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And props to them for getting a Dark Horse podcast following. Yeah. And
it's not an intellectual thing. I think it's just like an animal instinct of when I see them.
You just get exhausted by it. This guy
I'm just a little skeptical of it. I don't quite trust everything they're saying.
Do you trust that they believe what they're saying? That's different.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do believe. I think they're saying, and Eric Weinstein really opened my mind to a lot of things, and I think he's brilliant and pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. He also kind of fails to mention all the time that he's fabulously rich.
Of course.
And powerful.
Peter Thiel, whatever.
And as a VC, and he just sort of doesn't talk about that. I don't know. I think that's kind of strange.
That he doesn't mention how rich he is?
Yeah, or like that he's very much in the class of people that he's
Criticizing.
a little bit criticizing. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he could argue against me and just run circles around me, but that's like my gut feeling about it.
Or he might like play chess with you and be like, what you're saying is actually absolutely accurate, and it's because of this. It's because of the stature that I've achieved that have forced me to turn the mirror on myself. When I'm talking to my audience, I'm talking to an avatar of myself that I've technologically constructed. So I think we all need to do that. And you'd be like, what?
He's the guy in shul that just sits in the back and reads, and is just so smart.
Oh, there isn't. I get the villainous quality of Eric Weinstein, not Brett as much. But
No, I don't think it's villainous. I just don't think they're immune to the things they're railing against. I think at this point they're probably as suspect as some of the people they're talking about. Not as suspect,
No.
but I don't.
I disagree.
I
You know
think they're
why?
immune
Because
to
they don't actually have power over anybody. All they have is ideas. The difference between them and the things they talk about institutionally and governmentally is as long as they're on the side where they're not running for office.
I think their whole complaint is the wrong people have power.
Maybe as a
people
solution,
like us should have power.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not saying give me power. They're
not saying give me, but I think that's the.
But I guarantee you, I think if Eric Weinstein was offered the Senate to be on the Armed Services Committee, he would say no.
I'm not even talking about governmental. I mean like
influence.
He wants
You're
to
saying
be
influence.
like the chair of his department in whatever academia thing he was kicked out of.
You think so?
I
think he carries the sour grapes?
I do think.
I think he's grateful to have gotten out of this cesspool of anti-intellectualism. Like I feel like he feels way above that now than as opposed to trying to get there. You know, he left this sort of like anti-intellectual life.
Like he was forced out.
He was, but the reasons for him being forced out were probably meaning that it clearly was an anti-intellectual place, and now where he's in is a far better position than like trying to like get back to some chair of somewhere.
Well, I'm gonna murder both of them, and that's that.
Can't say that on YouTube.
Can't say that. You can't say that on YouTube.
Probably not.
Can you
It's a joke. I don't know.
That's
we don't want to get flagged on our very first pod. I love all those guys. I love the whole. But what saddens me is seeing like even members of the IDW, Sam Harrison, like getting into these. You don't know how much of it's manufactured. Like, is there real beef between a Sam? There was a time when they were all sort of on one side in terms of being into ideas, but then now in COVIDness and all this other arguments about ivermectin and stuff, like Brett has sort of carved himself out, has gone a little rogue, and he's getting criticizing. But then like that has influence on Rogan, who's kind of this amazing force within it all, and like this glue within it all. It all goes kind of through Joe Rogan, through the culture,
and it's very funny to see
because he's made all these intellectuals relevant.
Right,
he's turned them into pop stars,
and it's amazing seeing these dorks hang out with these extremely cool guys who would have nothing in common otherwise.
It's really Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan used to have Brett and Sam and everybody here talking about ideas.
But even the Tim Dillon Eric Weinstein beef is because like Tim Dillon's really cool and fun, and Weinstein's not.
Right.
And like they shouldn't be hanging out at all.
The beef
and
is
that's
hilarious.
what happens when you put those two people together.
He's like, these guys are on Clubhouse 40 hours a day. What are you doing? What do you do? Do you have to do anything? Do you have jobs? He shared one of my invitations. That was really fun.
That's great.
He's like, this guy's good. You introduced me to Tim Dillon.
Yeah, his Patreon, if you're not subscribed yet, is
you should go check out. He doesn't necessarily need you. He's doing very well.
He's doing fine.
Good for Tim.
Well, he had a whole. He did an appeal this week. If everyone increases their monthly pledge from 5 to 100, he could buy the house that he wants.
Did he? I saw a tweet from Ben Avery, his producer, that said like yesterday's episode wasn't good because you're a patron. Was there a weed episode that was bad?
They did a one on with a weed entrepreneur he's friends with, and apparently
why was it bad?
I thought it was interesting. I don't know. They responded to the comments. I think 600 people commented and said it was bad, so they did a bonus one to make up for it.
Because people just didn't like it, or did it not go well as a conversation?
I think he kind of brought the guy on as an example of the kind of douchebags he makes fun of.
Okay.
But he wasn't making fun of him. He was sort of actually interviewing him because he's a friend. And people were like,
what are you doing?
You're talking out the sides of your mouth.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I didn't see it. I think it was just for patrons to watch. It wasn't on YouTube. I looked.
It's just on Patreon.
Yeah. But you're a patron of
he's the only one I do.
Oh, good. Yeah. I haven't done anybody yet.
Makes me feel like a good person.
I get it. I think it's the future. Yeah. I love the idea that the independent creator, artist, musician, comedian, like the gateway is down. The gatekeepers are down.
It's very cool.
It's super cool. It takes a ton of work.
It's very cool.
What I've learned in my sort of like journey over the last 18 months is that building the audience yourself. It takes so much work, but that's the only barrier is the amount of work you're willing to put in. Once you find what kind of is working, that journey to find what can click, that's also its own hustle.
But not everyone has something. I include myself in this, or maybe I don't know how to say it, but not everyone has something so unique to say that the only barrier is work. You have to find out what you want to say first. And you have to find an audience.
We are going to arrive at a big here's a fundamental. We're arriving at a fundamental crossroads here in our philosophical outlook. Before we do that, we should probably tell the folks who the hell we are.
Sure. Why don't you want to go first?
I'll tell people who you are, and you'll tell them who I am. It's easier that way, I think. Right?
Yeah.
So this is the Buckle Up podcast. Thank you guys. If you've been watching up until now, then you're very patient with us. It's our very first real episode. It's not even real. Look at the background. We're in my new studio here. I just moved from Los Angeles. I was living there for 10 years, pursuing my music career, which, thank God, some stuff happened. I have some music on TV and film and commercials. Wait, I'm talking about you, though. But anyway, I just arrived from LA.
Talk about how you got here.
And that's how I got here. Anyway, yeah, I do music for film and television and all these other things, which Michael can talk about in just a minute. But I've been back here now for a few weeks, back on the East Coast. I'm native to New Jersey, so I'm now back here. And what was I going to say?
You say who I am.
Oh, I'm going to say who Michael is, right. So this is now our first episode in my new space over here. Michael Weber is a brilliant mind, a clever baby. A brilliant mind. We've been friends for many, 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 many years, since high school days. We're now in our mid-30s. There are some people that you grow apart with time, and Michael and I are one of these people who grow closer with time. We just take it from where we left off, with nothing in between. I said something nice there, Michael. I said something sweet.
That was nice. Thank you.
But we've always been on a very similar wavelength in terms of the way we look at things, and we have our disagreements, but even the disagreements are on the same page, if that makes any sense. So Michael has a lot of gifts of the mind in the way he views the world. He is a writer and has a ton of ideas and a ton of interesting things to say. And I've been trying to drag those things out of him for a long, long time. So I'm hoping through this podcast we can do that. And we're about to get into that portion of our philosophical disagreements on creative output. But in the meantime, that's Michael Weber. And he makes some film stuff, and he does some writing work, and you'll be seeing more of him, I promise.
Thanks. I also just moved not from the East Coast. I was in Brooklyn for a little while.
From the West Coast.
Sorry, not from the West Coast. I was in Brooklyn. We just moved to the suburbs in New Jersey as well. So that's definitely going to be a topic. Ami and I are going to be discussing how that adjustment is going, how you deal with kind of crushed dreams. But Ami is... Ami has the soul of an SNL performer that was born, unfortunately, in a modern Orthodox boy's body. He's incredibly talented, incredibly funny, an amazing musician, just an amazing storyteller, and great to be around. And he's, found a lot of success composing for commercials and I think film and TV. And he started a band in LA that's done very, very well. And he's kind of in the very top percentage of people who've been able to make a real career out of music. And he just recently sort of went out of his comfort zone and started performing. He did that on TikTok, and he had sort of a viral video pretty much off the bat. And he has been trying now very diligently to build that audience and try to take a go as that sort of SNL performer part of his brain, and it comes very naturally to him, and he's just trying to figure out the rest of it. And yeah, how's that?
Thanks, Mikey. Now, to clarify, I've been performing as a musician for 15 years, but on the comedy side of things,
right.
I began doing a lot of, over the last 18 months, comedy for me was always this neglected child of mine, where it was part of me, and I knew that I had like abilities and skills in it, but I put all my attention on the first child, which was music. And I was performing in bands and over the years, and then with my band Distant Cousins in LA, we've been very busy and active, and I've been very comfortable in that arena, performing on stage with a bass guitar, other instruments, singing and performing with a band. But comedy, that started basically in January of 2020. I decided to look at social media and say, okay, TikTok's this kind of newish thing. Not everybody knew about it yet. I'm going to treat it differently and just start posting every single day, 5 days a week. Take off for the weekends. I'm Shomer Shabbos. We both are. And that kind of led me on this whole journey all the way to where I am now, where I'm kind of now equal parts comedian, equal parts musician, but not in comfort and experience yet. So I'm really tackling the stand-up now, which is taking all the comedic content I've done in sort of the sketch video world that is social media entertainment, and hitting up open mics and getting on stage and working out this act. And it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary, and I look forward to it.
And I think something we're both working on is kind of saying the thing that only we can say, and hoping we find people who want to hear it, and taking that risk of maybe there's not someone who wants to hear it. So I'm trying to do that with my writing. I'm going to try to do that more with my writing and performing a little bit. But yeah, so that's something I will probably discuss as well.
Definitely part of this podcast is going to be both of us giving each other feedback and me guilting Michael for things I think I want him to do more of, which he likes guilt. That's like Michael gets off on a little bit feedback. I'm the opposite, but at the same time I hear it. I like the feedback as the constructive stuff is helpful. Now Michael's I'm going to say, because you were like, well, you said something interesting before when we were talking about when I said it just takes hard work, and like if people are willing to put in the work, you can do it. And you're like, well, no, because it takes time to figure out what it is first. But right?
Yeah.
But what do you mean by that?
Well, I used to work in the startup world also, and in the startup world they call it product market fit, and you sort of raise a little bit of money while you experiment different things, and once you find the product that a market wants, they call that product market fit. Basically, when you find a thing that works, that's when you raise kind of your Series B. You raise like $50 million, and you're like, now we know what works and we know how to do it. Now we have an engine. The more money we put into it, the more money we're going to get out of it. But until you find that product market fit, until you find that message or that itch people want you to scratch, you don't really have an audience.
Right.
And so like stepping on the gas isn't going to really, you're just going to be swerving really fast instead of really,
But let me ask you this.
Still going nowhere.
Before you find that market fit, what do you do before that?
Well, you have to experiment.
Right.
Yeah, you have to experiment.
And experimenting means putting stuff out there. So you're not really disagreeing with me. Doesn't mean sitting on things in your head.
But I guess
where I'm going?
I think if everybody in the world could experiment for long enough, they would find the one thing that only they could say. I don't know everyone is going to find the one thing they want to say within their lifetime.
Let's just say for people who are in the creative endeavors, whatever it is, writing, music, comedy, whatever it may be, artists, all those types of people who want to build an audience. Wouldn't you say a lot of people's main problem is thinking and not doing? Thinking, pondering, planning, and not doing. Because I think so.
I don't know. I mean, in the TikTok space, sure, because there's no cost at just putting out garbage as much as you want.
And this is the Gary Vee thing. That's true. I parody Gary Vee all the time for people.
Specifically with social media.
Yes.
Sure.
But not just social media. Everything has their outlet. It just takes a little bit of creativity to figure out what the outlet is for what you do.
With the short film I made, I think I should have spent more time thinking and planning and less time doing.
Not necessarily. I'll tell you why.
I did it, and that's what I think.
No, but if you look at it more like that short film was what it could be at the moment, you did the best you could do, and maybe it's not the thing. Maybe you just had expectations for it that were too high, and therefore, like you want this one thing to be the thing, but rather the movie that you made. Michael made this movie called Rudzin. Called Rudzin, and it was like the first real physical manifested creative endeavor, right? That start to finish you did. And it was
sure.
How long was it?
It was like, it ended up being 10 minutes.
It's a 10-minute short film, but you shot on location in Ukraine. It's about a fictional Hasidic community with ancient wisdom. What's the premise of Red Zen?
It's like this sort of like Shangri-La hidden town that's been a myth for a long time, and this guy who's in Poland trying to take advantage of these really desperate Jews finds this location and has to decide: am I going to go find this mythical place, or am I going to go back home to safety? Right.
But you're saying you should have spent more time in it before it was ready. Why? Well, I'm getting to something here, but I do want to hear it.
I have an impulse to just go out and do it because I'm very eager to like see something physical and concrete. I think with large, expensive projects, the real geniuses are the ones who know how to plan the best and the ones who can plan it perfectly and then execute it perfectly.
Nobody does it that way, though. I don't think that's how it works at all. What they do is they make Radzin, they learn about all the things they screwed up on, and on the next film, they don't do those things. Or they do them less.
Right, but one of the things I screwed up on was not planning well enough.
Right. So then the next movie you make,
Sure.
and the next thing is like, I got better at making movies. How? Because the first one, everyone's got their stories. I have my stories. We paid all these musicians and we did all these things. We went to the wrong, and we made this music video and we hired this person and that person, and it was all a mistake. But that doesn't mean but I didn't wait for that same exact endeavor to repurpose or I'm glad I put it out and the way it sounds. And I have stuff out there that's a little cringy or I would change, but it's more about the growth. You have to experience that part of it for each thing to get stronger and stronger. You don't learn anything by not putting out anything.
That I agree with.
Keeping these things in your head till they're perfect is the enemy of the good.
Right. No. Yeah.
Perfect is the enemy of the good.
I don't mean that. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you just mean you have trouble with things not living up to a standard in your vision.
No. That's not even what I mean. Even with a TikTok video that I make, there's a depth. Putting it out there could come from a place of laziness or from a place of urgency to learn quicker. If it's for me, it comes from a place of laziness where I'm I know if I spend enough, if I go back and edit the subtitles so it actually appears a second earlier, it works better. It's funnier.
Right.
But I really just want to press publish.
I see. So there's an issue there too, which is putting in the work. That's what I'm talking about. The work. When I said it takes the hard work, that's the discomfort. You have to have your threshold of quality. You do. You don't want to put out something if you there's a fine line between perfectionism versus your base level this could be better. I have an idea I could do this. But if the only thing stopping you is it takes a little more work,
that base level needs to.
So that's something to work on. I need to have a little more grit and resilience to do that.
Right, I'm working on that.
But you should never get to a point where you're and just overthink to the point where nothing gets shared and posted. Gary Vee says, I make fun of him all the time, and for anyone who follows me on TikTok knows, CEO of Gary Vee Impressions, all that stuff. But most of the stuff he says is pretty true. In terms of, it's not quantity over quality. Quantity leads to quality. People ask him all the time, Gary, should I post? He's like, honestly, on some real shit, quantity leads to quality. The more you do it with each one, you should so what I mean, my whole point in this whole series of questions is that there is this mentality, and I've seen it so much of thinking, wondering, and instead you have to be constantly putting stuff out and seeing what works, and you're gathering information. With each failed video or flop, you're getting a sense of it's like the Edison thing. I haven't failed. I just know 50 ways that don't work. But it's hard to do that when you don't know what to do. Obviously, once I found the kind of groove that worked for me on TikTok, I was that gave me a whole channel of tunnel vision of I'm going to focus and lean in and see. So I get it. To get to that point is hard, but you can't get to that point without doing stuff.
But it's hard. It's easier. Maybe I could say it like this. It's easier to learn when you believe you've done your absolute best with each thing, and then you can learn from that. If you haven't done your absolute best, then the reason it didn't work is because I was actually lazy about that thing. I should just try harder next time.
You'll always ascribe it to a fault on your end of something you could have done.
But if you know this is my best and it didn't work,
learning when to sort of call it is a hard thing. Yeah. But if you can't think of anything else, then you're probably done. Well, but if you could say I could definitely put subtitles that would help, do it. But after a certain point, you're watching it, you're good. I laughed initially. I've watched it 1,000 times. It's ready to go. Yeah. And then your instincts get sharper with that too. This is good. You'll know when ready is done. It's like cooking. You know when the steak is finished the more you cook the steak.
Right.
Just by touch. At first you have to put the thermometer and you have to think about it. But the output and the actions, I just think there's too much inaction in creative endeavors and too much and thinking and not enough doing.
So speaking of, you went to the city to try out new material last night?
Yesterday during the day. Yeah.
It was a daytime open mic?
Yeah. Right. They're all daytimes, a lot of them, because the night times are for shows. Yeah, so
it's just comedians who are literally people who are doing it full time.
Yeah, or no, they have day jobs and they squeeze in an open mic to come in. I've learned a little bit about in the comedy world. Comedians will know this, but the open mic world. There's a fascinating question I always had for comedians as a musician. When you're a musician and you're putting together a show, you rehearse. You get together with your band or whatever it is, and you work everything out beforehand, and you rehearse until it's tight. And you're this is going to be great, and this is ready to go. And even if you have a bad show or whatever, you prepared, and you did everything you could do in advance. And then I'm working out comedy stuff and writing material on a daily basis. That's part of the work. It's just being consistent about it. It's what I've learned in doing TikTok stuff is above all else, everyone's like, here's how to do it, strategy, what kinds of videos. It's like, no, first consistency. It's like, first just be showing up at the gym every day. Don't know what kind of exactly finessing to do. People are trying to get to 10,000, how to get to these kinds of subscribers, all that stuff. The consistency is important. So once I started writing stuff down in terms of bits and ideas, I'm like, I wrote on a whiteboard next to me, stand up, and I had to do it. And it was uncomfortable, but you discover the scene of the open mic scene of clubs that run open mics. And the purpose of them, it's not to get up in front of like patrons and entertain them. It's to work your stuff out. The only way a comedian can rehearse is to do it in front of people. And that's the pain of comedy. Music offers you a little bit more protection, and you can get up there and there's a little bit of a mystery with music. Not everybody knows if they're enjoying it or not. Like you have protection with music that with comedy, you're just exposed. And part of it is exposure therapy to the discomfort of rejection, being spotlit, not knowing exactly what to do, like winging it. You need that, like open mics and things like that. Like comedy requires this exposure therapy that I'm learning about, which is like just being up there. Because part of your funniest moments can be your loosest moments. You saw a set of mine, and the stuff where I was loose in the beginning was actually funnier than the prepped jokes I had written.
Way funnier.
I actually believe in the power of writing, but you have to bring your writing to the point where it's loose. And I know that. But the only way to do it, and it's like, it's just one of those things you have to accept, is getting up in front of people. And at open mics, it's other comics. So you can imagine it's not the most accurate audience in terms of read because everyone's waiting to do their stuff.
Right.
But it's good training because I've done stuff at open mics. And then the second you get in front of a real audience, which happened when I first arrived here, you came with me. It was like, oh, this is.
They actually want to laugh.
This is easier. They want to laugh. I don't know if it'll always be that way, but I'm learning as I go and as I go through this journey. So I when I got to the East Coast, I had been doing open mics.
You had like a warm up guy, also basically. You had like an opener.
Yeah, a host.
Yeah,
and then he called me up, and it felt great to be making real people laugh. And like you ask seasoned comedians, they're like, "Oh yeah, open mics. They don't laugh at open mics. Don't worry about it." Like, but for me, I'm just like, it's all a craziness, because I'm fresh on this side of the aisle. In comedy. So yesterday was like, okay, I'm finding an open mic this week because this was like my first full week. We just came off a ton of Jewish holidays. It's been a crazy season of not real life, and I said, this is the week. The week cannot go by if I do not get into the city and do an open mic. So at my own inconvenience, I drove in from the suburbs. We're living in Jersey here, and I haven't been in the city for a while, and especially over the last year and a half, it's changed to the point where it's brutal in terms of
driving and parking. Yeah,
I learned yesterday. I'm just making those classic mistakes when you move to a new town. Even though I'm from here, it's like I'm now new because it's been so long coming from LA and just not knowing the ropes of what it's currently like. I just got my ass kicked by New York City yesterday. Yeah. Brutalized. Like trying to drive around and like you find yourself.
Where were you?
I went down. I'm just such an idiot. I drove with my car down to Midtown in the 30s.
Yeah. Well, what else are you going to do?
Park by the Heights and take a subway.
I haven't been on a subway since.
But everyone's like, don't take the subway. So I don't know. I'm not here. Yeah. And everyone's like, don't take the subways. They're not safe anymore. I don't know if that can't be true.
People
talk about parents say that. Don't take the subways. It's really dangerous. The people are getting pushed. They're getting their cell phones taken. Anyway, what I mean is lesson rookie error. Don't drive down to Midtown in the middle of the day. Why? There's no parking.
You literally can't park a car.
You cannot park a car. Yeah. It's all commercial parking. Yeah. Everywhere. I think back in the day there used to be stuff you could meters.
Yeah, I had days like that when I moved here. Yes. And so I know it's a learning curve.
And I'm like,
because I was like, it can't be that there's no spots.
Yeah.
There has to be some spots.
And it turns out if you're not a commercial vehicle, and then you see these cars that don't look like commercial vehicles. They're all parked in fine, but they probably are. They have like a yellow license plate.
Right.
And I'm like,
take a chance.
And then I'm like, I get there early and I'm running late. Like I get to the city early for my standards. I just want to get some lunch.
I freak out.
What do you do? Mr. Broadway.
What do you do?
Okay. I just want to get a freaking salad because I'm trying to eat healthy. So there's not many options. And I'm driving around the same block 1,000 times. And like 45 minutes have gone by and I'm in the same area. And I'm getting, my soul is getting crushed. And then I just find a lot. And I get into the lot. And it's New York City. When you come from LA after a while, it's just like there's a lot of hey, come on, okay, come on. Let's go. What are you doing?
Stop.
And I'm just like, I don't know why am I getting? You're getting just dicked around by
like,
the city.
you're at
I'm
a
tripping at a thing.
You're at a red light and people are honking. And you're like, what? I'm allowed to go through this red light? And
And then we go into the parking area. I get up to the top of the parking area, and the guy, I'm like, can you park for me? Because I'm like in a rush now, and I had to drive. I drive up, no spots. And in these parking areas now, the lots.
Yeah.
It's green light, red light for the same lanes for cars to go down or the same ones to go up. You have to wait for the light. And then they pause a car up there.
That's
you go.
kind of nice.
No, because when you're late, in LA, you drive into a parking lot, you find a spot. Like, it's not like the parking in LA is great either.
Yeah.
But like, it's not as congested. And this is,
the
people talk about the traffic in LA.
isn't-
This is like another level. All the restaurants now are outside, so they push the streets to this like
that
one
also
lane.
Sucks, yeah.
And now it's all commercial. So I get into this lot and I finally get to the top, which is like, very slowly, because I'm like, I'm gonna crash my car today. Like it's gonna be one of those days. Like the car's gonna get totally sideswiped by myself, and it'll be my fault.
And you just decide if I do, I just keep driving.
It's something
I don't deal
like
with it
that.
now.
I get to the top, and he's like, "They send you up here because there's like no spots." He goes, and then this guy looks at me, and goes, "They send you up here?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Fucking hate my job. Fucking hate." No, he said, "Fucking hate this job. Fucking hate this job. I'll take care of you, man. I'll take care of you." That same guy, when I picked my car up later, was like, "Whoa, hey, what are you doing?" Because I just got a lot of that. Then I go down.
And you just feel like a little kid.
Yeah,
It's
I feel like I did. Like I want to be
into-
like, "Mommy, I want to call my parent."
And now you're gonna go
Can you come
perform.
get me? I don't know where the car is. I don't know where I am. Yes, I feel like a tiny child.
Right.
Then I get to this open mic that I'm going to for the first time. I don't know like where things are. I just walk into this club. They're all during the day. A lot of them. There's some at night, 7 p.m. or something like that. But they're at the clubs before the shows start.
Yeah, that's when I thought they were.
Yeah. So that too. But then they have day slots too, where somebody hosts and runs it, and a few comics
And
go.
you like had signed up before, or
You
no
register
one was
before.
expecting
Yeah,
you?
you pay like $5.
If you didn't
sign
show up, it didn't matter though.
No, if you do show up, it's bad.
If you don't show up, it's bad.
Yeah, and like you're getting slots online, and like you'll get a message like from the club, "Hey,
Oh,
man, no
really?
show." Like it's not cool to do
Okay.
that because you're taking
So
somebody's
someone's
spot.
waiting for you, basically.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, they'll check afterwards. Somebody didn't show. We had a name, and
Got
it's just you build up a bad name for yourself if you don't show up. One no show is fine, but I walk in. I don't know anybody. There's like a person by the door, and this is classic LA to New York move interaction. So I don't know who's who or whatnot. I walk in. I go downstairs. There's some woman by the thing just filling out things, and I'm like, I'm walking down. Hello. And I'm like, hello, hi, I'm Ami. She goes, okay. I go down the stairs. In LA, you'd say, hi, I'm Ami. Hey, I'm Casey. Nice to see you. And it's in the back. So this is New York. In New York, you walk downstairs, hi. And she like looks up like I say it with way too much enthusiasm. Because I think she's somebody.
It's the enthusiasm.
Yeah. I'm like, hi,
That's
I'm
what it
Ami.
is.
And she goes, okay. Open mic's over there. And she goes back to her business. I'm like, welcome to New York City.
Hey, I'm
I'm
Ami. I
that.
just moved
And I'm
to
supposed
New
to know
Jersey.
this stuff. I'm from here. It's like ridiculous. Hi. I don't even know. And she just goes, okay.
You're supposed
she
to,
doesn't say her name.
You're supposed to walk in silently and look around to see if you first can do it without talking to anyone.
Yeah, and before I get the information, she knows why I'm there, but I don't.
If you
Also,
absolutely
I
can't do it on
thought
your
she
own,
was
you
the
ask
person that
someone.
was booking the open mic, so I was like trying to say I'm here, but she's not.
right.
She was just like,
Right.
and I'm like, oh wow,
that's-
it's you don't notice those things when you're like living in New York all this time. Like when people, but I'm feeling what it feels like to be an out of towner in New York, even though I'm native to the East Coast and went to the city.
Right.
I really have been away.
When I visited you in LA and I walked into Coffee Bean for the second day in a row.
Yeah.
I was standing at the line. The guy at the counter went, "Hey, welcome back," and I was like, "Don't talk to me. Don't you dare
So
talk to me."
you have
like
it
you know
ingrained.
me."
This woman, I'll never
know
get over.
me.
She was like, she didn't say your name back to me. Hi, I'm Ami. Okay. It was amazing. Anyway, yeah, so I did go in, and I'm happy that I felt good about myself having done it because I knew the routine had to start. And I'm like, I'll never do it this way again. I went back to the lot, $45 for a half an hour. My
That's
day
a-
cost
that's a
me like
lot.
$100
That's a lot.
from between lunch, parking, and this
Well,
and that.
95 because you got. Oh no, you paid $5 to get on.
No, that fine. No, 45. It was
105.
45 for the parking, and then like lunch was ridiculous because it's the city. It costs like $30 for a kosher salad.
45 for half an hour is a lot. Anywhere.
I was like, I thought, and the sign outside says up to a half hour is $10. It said something deceiving, and they were like, first 2 hours. I'm like, outside, I thought first half hour was $10. He goes, first 2 hours.
yeah, it's something. That
First 2 hours.
He just repeats
and,
it.
and I'm like, but, and he's like trying to drive away to park another car. I'm like, you said there's a sign outside that says first half hour is $10. He goes, first 2 hours.
And you're like, oh right, first 2 hours. right.
And I'm like, I am getting raped by this city. It's terrible.
yeah,
Anyway, I just ate it. I had to do it that way.
Yeah.
And then I'm like driving
learn.
back. I
You
tried to
learn.
drive back. It's like 4:00.
Well,
I waited in my car doing some phone stuff, and then it was like 5, and I got
That's not
totally
good. Yeah.
fucked. I was like, trying to get out of the city, and it took 2 hours to get home,
Yeah.
which you normally can take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening here? And it was just like gridlock upon gridlock where you're just moving like this.
Yeah, where it takes half an hour to get down to one street.
It wasn't always like that. You could get out of the city on the west side of things, not the east side.
It's really bad now because of COVID. A lot of people moved out of the city, are now driving in.
Yes.
Few people are taking public transportation.
Yeah, no one's in the subways
really
as much.
awful. During COVID, it was
Amazing.
Edenic. It was incredible.
What a word.
I stopped.
I never heard that word before.
Oh yeah, it's a Harry Rosenberg word.
Edenic? Is it a real word? Like Garden of Eden,
like Garden of
paradise?
Eden, yeah.
Edenic.
I stopped.
Word of the day on the podcast. Word of the day. Edenic.
Word. I stopped and I could hear my tires screeching echoing off the buildings. It was that empty. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's an amazing. That's
and
a trip.
now it's awful. It's awful. I have to drive in for my work. I drive in during rush hour because there's also now a rush hour to get into the city for some reason at night, and then I'm driving back during rush hour into New Jersey. It's.
I was thinking to myself, there was a lot of
process.
moments where everyone's almost just hitting each other on the roads, where you're just like trying to get around somebody and almost hitting each other. Everyone's like getting it, and then everyone's just like, it's just constant honk, super congested.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. I finally did get home, and I was like, this will be the early days reflections on my comedy journey. That I'm like, oh my god, I drove hours to do 5 minutes. But I know that's what it takes.
What are you gonna do next time?
So I have to figure this out. And I'm like, do I bike over the bridge, lock my bike, and take a subway down?
Someone does, but not you.
Yeah, but
I don't
while
think
it's
that's what
warm.
you
But
do.
then I'm like, what about an electric bike?
I don't think that's what you do.
Why?
I just don't think you're gonna do that.
That would be good because I want to get my exercise in. I feel like that would feel really good. It's not going to last because it's going to get cold.
That'd be nice.
Biking. What if I bike over the bridge? Get into that. It sounds ambitious as hell.
Honestly, I think you take the bus.
Yeah, but then I looked at whatchamacallit? I looked at what was I thinking?
This is a fun conversation.
No, it was. Oh, electric bikes online, they're like way expensive, but they look glorious. They just look really fun.
I have one, actually.
You have an electric bike?
Yeah.
At home? Do you use it?
I've never used it once.
Why?
I've never used it once.
Doesn't it feel glorious with a little engine? Show me the engine!
I've never gotten it to work. I'm going to start using it. I bought it to go in between apartment showings.
Yeah.
And the tire was flat and the chain was broken.
Oh,
and
electric
now I don't live in
vehicles
the
are
city anymore.
electric like scooters and stuff. They feel so fun, like a kid.
I need to play with it.
Let me hear the engine. You ever hear
buses-
that guy on Nasser on TikTok?
No.
He walks up to people in the car and he just looks over and he goes, "Excuse me," and they think they're gonna be some sketchy. Can I just tell you something? How fuckable do you think I am? And they just start laughing. Honestly, do you know where I can get some booger sugar? And he goes, "I love your car. Let me hear the engine." Yes. Nasser or something on TikTok. Very funny guy. But
Nice.
anyway, I want one, but I will never use. I don't know if I'll use it.
I don't
I think the
think you'll
move
use it.
is a bus where if I'm gonna do an open mic, I don't drive in for the open mic. I go to the city for a day.
Right.
I park
that's
somewhere
it,
like
right.
Upper West Side, find a
You do
spot,
everything
whatever.
you need to do in the
Do
city
everything I need to
on
do,
one
take
day.
meetings, whatever it is, hit the open mics, come back at the end of the day.
That's definitely another option.
Not going at 3 o'clock for a thing. It was a nightmare.
Definitely an option.
And maybe take the bus. So I'm on feet the whole time and I'm fine with that because
Yeah.
being on foot in the city, I always felt was way more advantageous than the car
And
situation.
if you have to take a
sucked.
subway, you take a subway.
The bike, I was thinking, I got excited. I'm like, maybe that'll be my exercise bundled in. I don't think it lasts. But
I got when I first moved to Brooklyn, I got a membership to the YMCA. That was a bike ride away. I was like, it's perfect. I'll bike there. I'll get that exercise. I'll work out.
Yeah.
Then I'll bike back. It'll be
didn't do
amazing.
it.
The only time I went there, I biked there to cancel my membership and then bike back.
something about biking, I feel like either you're a cyclist or you're not, but and then I see guys doing it and I know what would happen. I would start doing it and I'd be like, do I need to buy the gear? Like the ball sack shorts
And
so
then
I
you're
don't
show up
chafe?
sweaty.
Right.
And, like,
I
what
hear
if you're
that.
not in the mood to bike back at the end?
Yeah, I know.
What if it's raining?
That's why electric would be amazing. How good would how you know how accomplished I would feel if I biked to the city
Yeah,
and
but
back
I don't think you'll ever do it.
on an electric bike? It
I
would
don't
be
think
glorious.
you'll ever do it. You want to make a wager on the podcast?
I don't think I'm going to do it either, but I need a strategy. And it needs to be city days. The other strategy
you
is
have
going
it.
in at night for open mics that are earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Like 7 p.m. slot is hard with kids.
No,
but
it's-
there are
it-
later
yeah.
ones. I'm like, I'm never doing a day one unless I'm doing an early day in the
You
city.
go in at 11 a.m. when there's less traffic.
Yeah.
You park, you spend the day there, and you come back at like
Have
8
some
or-
lunch,
8 or
meet
9.
somebody.
Yeah, you meet someone for dinner,
Yeah.
and you come back at like 8 or 9 if you can.
And have a full day's worth.
Yeah.
But I want to be. The problem is I want to be doing these kind of nightly, which is crazy.
Yeah, you have to be, don't you? If you want, if you're taking it seriously.
And getting good, so it's hard to figure out. There's no like Jersey open mics. But anyway,
There's no Jersey open mics?
I'm sure there's something. But the point is, the
There's
next
gotta be
stage, the way
some.
it works,
In
is like you
Hoboken?
have your open mics, then you have bringer shows. The bringer shows, the next stage is if you tell a club I can bring 5 to 10 people, you can
Right.
get 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
All that being said, you've already gotten 10 minutes on stage at a show.
I did like 7, I think. at the Brooklyn Comedy Club.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it's happening, and I think bringer shows. Look, I'm not new to the stage. I have some advantages to this that maybe people who've never performed at all. So I have my sense of rhythm and timing. It's just building up the material and working it out, and just honestly doing it all the time, which is going to be interesting and challenging. But I look forward to it because I'm not at the point yet where I can really enjoy it. You know, it's a stress.
Right.
But I wonder what it will feel like when I like murder.
Right.
Hopefully. Mitzvah Hashem.
Yeah, right into the veins.
A murder. I don't know, like, because also I'm missing music a lot because my band is in LA, based in LA, and we're playing in November. So this is a long stretch. COVID plus this, it's been a really long time since we really played consistently. So we're hopefully getting back into that. But music is really like sacred to me. I've been doing it for so long, and it's very much it's hard to have one element of performance that is in a certain space of comfort and another one that is so raw. Right. So the enjoyment level is just way different. I don't know what the analogy is, but I'm like, I can let go musically on stage in a way where I can just be there and enjoy the moment. Whereas with comedy, it's like I'm so fresh to it. Yeah. It's like a new sport I'm playing. Like I just have to learn all the technique first. I can't just like enjoy. If like an expert guy who plays hockey, it's like can just have fun. And with and he can't play basketball also. It's not fun yet. You know, it's more work, which is. You know. Yeah. But anyway, I look forward to that.
I look forward to it too. Are we at 3 hours yet? Where are we?
Michael, I think for episode 1,
did we hit 3?
We hit a good solid hour, and it flew by.
Pretty good.
And it actually didn't feel that weird.
No, not at all.
I hope it didn't feel weird for all of you.
I think next time we maybe do less politics.
Maybe.
Or you can say to yourself, I don't need to watch Rogan and Dylan and everything. They'll just repeat everything they say to themselves.
Oh, between us?
Yeah. So maybe we could save people time that way. Just
or we could just not think about it that much and just keep making stuff, and we'll see what works. You see, Michael's too busy playing for the Olympics. I'm training daily. Okay, that's the difference here. Okay, and maybe we'll find a way to meet in the middle. Michael trains for the Olympics, where it's every 4 years, big shot, boom. True. And I'm training daily, like I'm in the freaking NBA seasonal.
I'm working on.
What's the latest?
I need to do more. It's a longer conversation. I need to figure out if I'm the kind of guy who has a good idea every 5 years and just pursues it doggedly, or I have okay ideas that I just try and sell and have a working career.
On the writing side.
On the writing side, yeah.
Maybe you don't know until you try both.
Yeah, I think I've been
also writing can only get. It's like if you write every day,
right?
And get feedback in some form every day. You do write every day.
We're doing, and when I don't, I do this 30 days of something, which maybe we can end on, which this private Facebook group. If anyone wants to join, get in touch. Where everyone commits to posting some progress on some project every day for 30 days, and you're committed to everyone else's commitment. So if you don't post, it's a little embarrassing.
Or you can get kicked out of the group. But you
could get kicked out theoretically.
This honestly, to be honest, got me probably started on making content in daily, because Michael started this Facebook group, 30 Days of Something, commits you every single day to post to the group, and it forces you to do it no matter how comfortable or ready you feel. So you end up posting and you get into a really good regimen. And it used to be that if you get kicked out each round, it goes in rounds. It's not one group all the time. You start new rounds, right?
Right.
You start a brand new group.
If you miss a day, well, we've tried different ways. We did 60 days of something. I think we ended up on 30 days. Weekends optional is a good formula.
Yeah.
It should be that if you miss a day, you get kicked out. But the issue with that really is does that motivate people or just discourage people? And I found it doesn't actually motivate anyone to do it. If they're going to miss, they're going to miss.
Right.
And then
they'll be the only ones who didn't show up, like a class or something. And you don't want to be the guy without your assignment.
They just don't get the benefit of it.
Maybe if you threw like a Zoom call at the end of it for everyone to talk about their stuff, then they'd be like, don't you want to show up?
But you can't be in it if you don't.
Or if you don't have anything to show for it. Right. You can be in it, but you'll be like, anyway, so we'll skip over such and such. That's a nice idea, actually. Then it makes maybe we could really build a community. Yeah. I will tell you, this being forced into this regimen and having some accountability, setting yourself up for that, is an amazing way of getting yourself to do things. Part of the creative, struggle is just how to get yourself to do things. Yeah. Without just will alone. Will is not enough. You've got to set yourself up. So 30 Days of Something, Michael started it. Each one is a brand new group from scratch. Each time you do it?
There's some people, some new people, some fewer people.
Not the same people, but like when you start the Facebook group link, do you just restart a new group?
It's a new group from scratch.
All right. So Michael starts the group. If you'd like to be on it, we don't have an email yet for this podcast, but we'll figure something out.
Maybe comment or something.
Yeah, and maybe we'll put a link in this description to 30 Days of Something to join for the different rounds. He does one in the fall, in the summer. They're reoccurring, but they're very cool.
If you're writing a story, just post one word. If you're working on art, just post one idea or whatever it is, just something. Because if you're not working on it every day, then what are you doing?
Exactly.
Really, that's the idea.
So I think we can call it. That
Let's
was an
call it.
awesome conversation, as always. I am Ami Kozak, also known as AJ Comedy on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. A lot of comedy impressions and music there. And this is my co-host.
Michael Weber. I'm at M Weber on Instagram. It's probably the best place to find me. MWEBR.
There's also a doctor on TikTok, right?
Oh, and Dr. Harvey Karp on Instagram as well. He's a baby expert.
He's a baby. Check it out, Dr. Harvey Karp. We'll try to put links to everything there. Thank you guys for watching. This is episode 1 of Buckle Up! Buckle Up.
Buckle up, baby.